Welcome to the talk show where men unite. We're having conversations that inspire and ignite. From relationships to wellness, we cover it all. In this positive space, we're standing tall. We're the men of the talk show, spreading good vibes, sharing knowledge, opening hearts wide. We got positive energy flowing through. Join the conversation, let us empower you.
Welcome back to the Men's Talk Show. We got Wayne here. And we got Justin Gathens. Good morning. He's a motivational speaker from his TikTok channel. And he is going to be joining us today because he has some personal experiences with how he overcame, his darkest days in his life, as well as me and Wayne. So if you kind of introduce yourself a little bit, Justin, where you're from, what you do, just so the audience members that watch us can kind of get more background about you.
Yeah, my name's Justin. I'm a nurse in the recovery field. I'm a motivational speaker, just different topics daily to hopefully find something to resonate with somebody, to let them know that it's okay to not be okay, and just to inspire people.
That's great. My wife is also was a nurse for 19 years.
Really?
Yeah, so I understand that profession and how much work it is. So thank you for taking care of the community.
Absolutely.
That's what's needed.
So I'm going to kind of get us started with sharing my personal experience with how I overcame my darkest days. So I'm going to give you like the little background before I share how I overcame it. So basically, I had an evil auntie and she was really mean. I had got taken away from my mother because of my father, what he did, but I'm not gonna go into that specifically what he did, but I'm just kind of related to my auntie and keep it on track with her. So she basically, she really didn't love me. We got taken away, me and my sister, when we was like 8 or 9 years old, because basically it was no one else to really take us in after they had take us away from my mom. And she was the only one that was really the next kin to take us in, or else they was going to put us in foster homes. And basically she took us in. She was very belligerent with us all the time. She threatened to say, if you don't do what I did, if you don't do what I want, then I'm going to put you back in foster homes and you will never see your mother again. It was a whole lot of chaos in the family there, the different dynamics between the cousins and stuff like that. My cousin, he was in and out of prison there. They actually bust in our actual house that day, and because they was looking for him because he was doing drugs. And It was just so much chaos. It was just so much craziness that went down at that house. And this all took part on the east side of Cleveland, so on Central Avenue. So you already know it's dysfunction there.
How old were you?
I was like 8 years old, so I wasn't even in high school yet. I was still like in elementary, to say the least.
Okay.
And yeah, and she went to bingo, and every time she went to bingo, every Saturday night, that's when the drama happens. That's when I got into it with my cousins. My sister was fighting my cousin. I was fighting my male cousin. It was always fights down there, and it was always chaotic. And I just felt like I was going to snap if I didn't get out of that environment, because you want to think that your family is good and they have good intentions. But after seeing all of that, what I saw, it was like, I had to get up out of there. It was a caseworker that used to always come, and she would ask me, is everything doing okay? But of course, I didn't want to really say how things was, because if I told her everything that went down there, she would have taken me out of that house and taken me into a foster, like a foster home. And then you don't never know what you would get when you're dealing with a complete stranger. So basically, to make a long story short, how I kind of overcame that, we had to set up some video cameras around the house to kind of, defend ourselves. And my mother, thank God, she was getting back up on her feet so she can take us back from my auntie. And long story short, when they caught all that footage and my mother went to her parenting classes and she got herself back up together, and they said, no, you're getting out of this dysfunctional home. And so we went back with my mother. And that's kind of like how I kind of felt like, I overcame that just by having evidence that stuff was going down and my mother was in the right position to take us back after,
So who had the idea to do the videos?
Huh?
Who had the idea to do the videos?
My sister. She was like 5
is-
years older than me, so she was like 13.
Okay, so it was like early 2000s. I mean, 'cause
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't have like smartphones with.
No,
cameras
but
back
like it
then.
was more like just like one of the flip phones where you can record it. It wasn't
Oh.
very good audio, but it was enough to convince.
Right.
It was enough to convince them to say, "You're getting out of this dysfunctional home."
So how long were you there?
I want to say until it was a good maybe 2 or 3 years that I was with them. So like 10 or 11, I got out from them because you had to go through a lot. It's a lot more to the story, but that's for another day. I'll be sitting here all day explaining that. It's a lot more to that story, but just know the part that I said is kind of like
I get that.
the iceberg of it,
But you said like this is one of your darkest days. So how did that affect you mentally when you got back to your mom? Did you still like think about
Yeah,
that?
it definitely affected me mentally because I had to just, it was a lot of things that I wasn't used to doing when I was my mom. So like I would be scared to, just be myself, and she'd be like, "Why you're so quiet?" I didn't want to, disturb the peace, because if I felt like I disturbed the peace, then it'd be an argument. But that was my old mentality when I was living with my aunt. And I felt like, when I got back with my mother, things were a lot more better. That I had to kind of clear my mind and say, this is not a dysfunctional home anymore. So,
Did you talk to anybody, or you just did it by yourself?
No. I briefly talked to a social worker, but back then I wasn't really keen on talking to a lot of people because, I was younger and I didn't have the mentality like I did now to talk about my mental health. I would talk to people, but it wouldn't be like to the extent of what we're doing right now, sharing every little aspect of it,
Because being vulnerable as a kid is very difficult, especially when you don't see other people doing that. And then, you come out of a hard situation. You just want to do what you can, try to forget it, move on.
And it can be really scary to open up, especially for the first time at such a young age.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have any personal stories of how your darkest days and how you overcame it? You could be big or small. Doesn't matter.
When I was a junior in high school, my best friend, my older brother, died in a car accident. I just kind of started to spiral. I didn't, I was young, just a young high school kid, didn't really know how to control my emotions or anything like that. So I kind of turned to like the complete opposite way that you should. I started drinking and just trying to numb the pain. Like, as high school kids, that seems to be the answer. But then that led out of control. And then I just knew it was time for me to move away and like just kind of regroup and just lean on my support system. And that's when I learned I could talk to people, and they were probably feeling similar emotions.
And how did that affect your mental health? Did you have to see someone, or?
No, I never really went to see anybody. I kind of turned into a loner for a lot of years. Kept like I bottled everything up for so long, and till a few years later just kind of bubbled over, and I went down that dark path all over again, and almost a suicide attempt. And then I got into like the power of music and like really looking into the words of the songs, not just the song as a whole, but like what it means. That's when I started writing music, and it just got me out of that dark place. So like even today I keep a journal or I write music just to get my head out, or my feelings out rather.
So the power of writing music helped you to overcome what you was going through, basically. Yeah. Okay.
Because it takes those thoughts out of your head, whatever they may be. Just as long as you write it down, they're not in you. trapped in your subconscious anymore, you know?
Yeah, it's a healthy outlet.
Right.
Absolutely. And what you said, it resonates with a lot of men, is that you're dealing with a very traumatic, tough time, and you just bottle it up. And on the outside, people see you're smiling or whatever, but on the inside, then no one can really see what's going on in there. And then eventually, like you said, things boil over, or you get to that chaotic event, the traumatic event in your life that can either make or break your future. So
Right.
I'm happy for you that you went through a very tough time, but you was able to overcome, and you found a healthy outlet in music.
Yeah.
Did you ever turn to like family or friends in that time that you feel like you can trust and go to?
I talked to a few friends, but I didn't really feel like I had anybody then because I was just so young and didn't really know how to express what was going through my head.
I can relate to that. You have so much that you go through in your own mind that you don't realize.
Right.
You don't realize that other people you feel like other people may not understand you when you're a child, because a lot of
Right.
times you get really dismissed and say, "Oh, it's not that bad. You're just a child." I've heard that from my auntie
Yeah.
and cousins so many times. Like, what are you going through so bad that you can't talk to people, or you can't come in here and act like a normal person? I've seen it time and time again when adults dismiss children's trauma and things to that nature. What are you going through so bad that you haven't lived enough to been through enough? You know what I mean? And I feel like that's just so dismissive of children. That's why they don't talk in the first place, because they feel like that no one will really understand them because they haven't been through enough in their life. Just because you haven't been through enough, that doesn't necessarily mean that your experience is any less or more than an adult's experience.
Right.
And that's hard to say that, especially as a father. Right now, I have a teenage daughter, and there'll be times where like she's expressing something that went on in school or something that's affecting her. And my first thought, I don't know, I don't say it, but my first thought is like, man, you had it so much easier than I had growing up.
Right.
It's like you haven't went through half the struggles I went through. We live in a pretty good neighborhood. She has great friends, and I'm just like, man, I would have killed to have your life as a kid. But to what you're saying, Duran, what comes out of my mouth is empathetic, because I'm a health coach. So I was taught empathy in school, and so I realized that I speak empathy, but in my first thought, human nature said, "Man, you didn't live anything." But like you said, we can't put how I live on someone else and negate how they feel or try to minimize how they feel.
So today, do you still write music, and do you feel like it's another coping mechanism that you took up in place of music, or just music always been?
No, I still do music. I exercise now. I make my TikTok videos. I write 2 videos a day, about a minute and a half a piece, maybe a little less. And I just try to pick a new topic every day. Just to, maybe somebody needs to hear me talk about the dark days today and resilience tomorrow. I try to make sure they're all different, but all relatable at the same time.
And
So
men
how
appreciate
long-
it. I'll go ahead.
Tell us when you started your TikTok, because that's how we found you. Just the For You page, and your videos just showed up, and we definitely related to them and understand the message. So, what made you want to start that when you posted your first video? How long was that?
It all started out around Christmas this past year, because I'm in the middle of a divorce right now, and my brother challenged me to do 10 push-ups every day. But the challenge was to add 1 push-up every day and film it, because he wanted to make sure I was doing it. So that led, like, about day 30 or so, I was like, man, I could say something motivational before I do these. So now I still do the 50 push-ups every morning, because that's when we cut it off, was to stop when you got to 50. But I just don't film the push-ups anymore. I do the videos, because by the time you talk for a minute or minute and a half and then do 50 push-ups, you got a 3-4 minute video, then they're only watching the first minute when you do your speech.
No, that's really good though. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
And big ups to your brothers. to bring you that idea. Why do you think he came up with that type of challenge at the 50 push-ups or
I don't
the
know.
10 per day type of thing?
I think that was just his way to motivate me because he knows I've always kind of struggled with being out of shape. And so, that helped put me in a positive headspace and helped me lose some weight. So that in turn put me in a better mood all at once. And it kept me distracted from all the struggles and pain I was going through at the time.
So sorry to hear you're going through a divorce. You know, I know that's definitely a very difficult time. Is that something still ongoing, or is it kind of, just finished now, just waiting on the end paperwork?
Just we go to court June 12th. So really just waiting on the court date, but we still get along pretty well and we co-parent well, and that's the main thing.
That is good. How many kids do you have?
Just one.
Okay. Yeah. And it's got to be a difficult time for the kid as well. And so using your past experience, I'm sure you can definitely try to understand that what your child is going through and try to be there for them more so than what you had. Right? Absolutely. And I just say that because, my parents are also divorced, and, as a kid, as again, one of those things you don't want to speak up because you feel like maybe it's partly your fault. I know a lot of kids say that. And then you don't want to say the wrong thing to start another argument for your parents or anything like that. And then we keep that as we grow up as teenagers and as young adults. Like, so we just don't talk about things. And so
Right.
I'm really hoping that, you sharing your story right now and what you're still going through, but how you're trying to raise your child better. I didn't say it's a boy or a girl.
A boy.
Oh, so definitely we want to make sure that he understands that he has you to, that's his safe space. And we're trying to make this safe space for a lot of men who may watch this and know that this is a place to share, is judgment free, because a lot of us never had that growing up. Absolutely.
Right.
I'll share a story about me. Some of my darkest days were when I was 21, and I just came back from being stationed overseas in Japan, and I was working. Yeah, I was catching up with my mom. So I spent most of my childhood with my dad, actually, in Columbus, Ohio. And then I went my last few years of high school. I went down with my mom. We kind of reconnected, and then she helped me join the military. And so I was in Japan for 3 years, and I came back from Japan, was stationed in DC, and we were, mind you, back in this early 2000s. So there was no video calls or nothing like that. We mainly just messaged on email. But then when I came to the States, we could speak more over the phone. So we had plans to meet together for one of my youngest sister's high school graduation, which was in June. And I got back to the States in February. So it was about 4 months. So we talked about it, made the plans. And then unfortunately, my mom passed away in May. So 1 month before my sister's graduation. So
Oh, wow.
that was really hard. And then I went out with a friend to just try and cope and deal with what I'm going to do in my next steps, because I'm the oldest. So trying to help out with everything, services. And then I got a phone call later that night that my paternal grandmother also passed away the same day. So my mom and my dad's mom passed away on the same day, 2 unrelated incidents. One was in Ohio, one was in Atlanta. And so that was definitely one of the darkest days for me, where I really felt like the world was ending. How can these both people that I care about pass away on the same day, in 2 separate parts of the country, unrelated things? It was just really hard during that time. And then how did I overcome that? I just kept it to myself. What I did, my brother was struggling at the time. I had him come up to DC with me. So he lived with me for a while. So that was helpful. So I wasn't by myself. So I was trying to be strong for him and my sister, who was still down in Florida. And then I just distracted myself with working out, playing video games a lot. I did a lot of video games in my early 20s. But I just never really talked about it until yeah, until like my 30s. So there's really not no like, successful overcoming. It's just, like most men, we just grit it, we bear it, and just tough it out, and just keep going with the next day. And um, that's not the best way to overcome things, but that's what a lot of men do.
It
Uh,
is.
yeah. So now I know that, if I do have some troubles, I know I can go speak to a counselor. I do have close people now who are actual friends that I can talk to. And I know that if I get emotional, they won't judge me because I'm a guy.
Right.
Didn't know that, Wayne. I didn't know. No wonder why you never really talk about your mom. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. It's just one of those things we gotta go through in life. And it was a very tough time. And even now, I wish my mom was here, so they can, have someone who would visit and be there for them. So, but I'm also very fortunate now because I have a stepmom who filled that role, and she does it graciously, and I love her for that because my kids love her and she loves them, and they don't know that, well, my youngest doesn't know that she's not my biological mom. So she stepped in that role graciously and has been there 100%. So that absolutely helped a lot.
Are you still grieving a little bit to this day, or is it like
No, I just
something?
when I think about her, it hurts, especially because she's the reason why they got me in the Navy because she gave the recruiter my phone number. So 'cause I had no intentions of going to the Navy, but no, it's just sometimes like when I see people, really hits me like my neighbors. They're always telling me like, "Oh, my parents are coming over for the weekend," or "We're going," or the my neighbor and his wife will go out of town, and the parents their parents, their grandparents will come and stay with the kids and things like that. Like, man, I wish I had that, for my kids. Now I said my
Right.
stepmom, she's there, but she's in Ohio, so she's not as able to come down as often. So those type of things where I think about it and I grieve a bit.
All right. That's kind of all the time we have today, guys. We want to thank Justin for coming on the show today, for sharing his, being vulnerable and sharing his experiences. Thank you, Wayne, for sharing your experiences. Like if the viewer is watching this, if they're going through some dark times, any wisdom and words for them too, guys?
My big thing is just don't be afraid to reach out. It's okay to not be okay. Even if you have to get on my TikTok and message me personally, I don't mind a bit. And I'm sure we can share a link or something. And I all the time have new videos every day. But lean on your friends. It took me a long time to realize that it's okay to talk to people and to lean on them. But somebody told me the other day, and it rings true, that sometimes when you're not strong enough to love yourself, it's okay to let other people in to love you too.
Yeah, that's great.
And I
Yeah.
would definitely, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, absolutely 100% back everything you just said, Justin. And for those who are watching who are like, well, I don't know if my friends will understand what I'm going through, or maybe they'll judge me, then those aren't your friends. And you know what?
Exactly.
It's better to be out there and be open. And if they leave your life because of you're struggling as a human, then those aren't the type of people you want around. And you'll find people who are your tribe who um who are grown up enough to understand that emotions are a part of being a man.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely will second what you said, Wayne. People are not there to support you in your darkest times. Then why do I need you when I'm celebrating my good times?
Exactly.
You gotta give me. It has to be. It has to be equal. Like I'm not. You can't just be there when I'm at my most highest moments. I need you there when in my darkest days too. You know, and coincidentally, that is going to be the name of my memoir that's coming out in about 2 years. Let me see, it's in about 3 years. I had to do some rewriting for it, but it's called On My Darkest Days and My Deepest Pain. So it was very dark, but it got to like a good ending of it. But to get this, to pretty much get back to the main point. So basically, if you are struggling, man, go get help. We're in 2024 now. It's therapists, it's counselors, family and friends. Don't feel like you have to be isolated and being to yourself. Go get the help you need. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. We are all living this life and trying the best that we can. I've seen so many people died of suicide, specifically men. You have to go
Yeah.
get help. Talk to someone. You can't be that person and say, oh, no one never understand. They won't never understand until you open up. But other than that,